Barack Obama and Joe Biden just achieved the impossible. They helped make more new Republicans than Ronald Reagan did. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I couldn't believe this when I read it this morning, and this, by the way, is New Year's Day Eve morning, if you follow along with that.
That's right.
For the first time since FDR and the Great Depression, voters who identify as Republicans outnumbered Democrats, and by a pretty good margin, 3%, according to data released this week by Gallup. And it's not just Gallup. Political analyst Patrick Ruffini, who have read his stuff for years and years, he wrote that after the exit polls were reweighted to reflect the final popular vote result, Republicans outnumbered Democrats by 5 points in the AP VoteCast survey and by 4 points in the network exit poll. So Gallup is actually on the low end at 3%. And the closest we'd ever gotten to that was in 2004, but I think I'll get into that later. I just wanted to say that tonight we're going to party like it's 1924. Bill, in the last 16 years, we've had 12 years of hard left Democrat presidents who got everything they wanted legislatively in their first 2 years and then took advantage of, what Margaret Thatcher called the ratchet effect to lock in those gains. Now we have more self-identified Republicans than Democrats for the first time in almost a century. And I submit to you, Bill, that these two items are not unrelated.
No, I don't think they are unrelated. By happy coincidence, I just finished a hot mic show called "Did We Win the War in '24?" And one of the most horrific things about many wars, and certainly World War II and Civil War, is that the war continues for another year or two after the war is lost and won. So saying that we've won the war doesn't mean the war has ended. In fact, most of the killing happened in the final year of the war when the dead enders just continue to make a stand and just keep throwing more and more resources at this lost cause. But yes, I think the culture war is not over, but I think it's won. And there is no better indicator of that than the hard data of the number of people that are switching parties. One of the things I mentioned in this hot mic show is, where did the Democrats go from here? They certainly don't seem to be exhibiting an abundance of introspection on why they lost. They seem to be largely saying, well, we lost because we had no idea the country was so racist, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and these ignorant, stupid, Trump-supporting MAGA bastards are too stupid to have realized that they elected the wrong person. And my personal feeling is, I hope that trend of mass stupidity continues. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Steve, I don't see a pathway to woke 2.0, and there is no alternative for them. They are so married to this ideology that it really makes me wonder if they're not headed the way of the Whigs. In order to win back. Because they're going to continue to lose this share of the population. These numbers are going to get more and more in Republicans' favor as they continue to get more. As you were talking before about was it Sarah Hoyt who said roll left and die?
Roll left and die, yeah.
Yeah. So as they continue to fail, they're going to. All the indications are they're seeing their failure as a result of not being left enough, not being woke enough, not being progressive enough. So they're going to continue to roll left and die. They're going to lose more and more people. But I don't know how they undo woke. Because, look, woke as a term is just so badly overused now, but it is, as a general adjective, relatively useful for this far left progressive Marxist identity politics.
Yeah, and it's ideologically totalitarian. So once you've taken a hold of that, it's almost impossible.
You can't let it go.
Yeah.
You how do you do it when your entire brand is that there is an inexhaustible well of injustice out there that you must be outraged about perpetually, and this is what we're selling. How do you get to a place where you basically say, hey, mission accomplished? The entire thing is predicated on division and a kind of fear mongering that they can't come out and say, hey, the earth is going to be okay. They can't come out and say racism is essentially on its way out in America. They can't come out and say that there are are only two genders. They can't do any of these things. So they're really trapped in this kind of abattoir chute, that's got them funneled into this building that they don't particularly want to go into and that they're not likely to come out of.
Oh, man, you just made me think, talking about the reaction to the loss last month, Bill, you reminded me of this funny gag on Friends from, I don't even know what season, where one of them ends up at this one-woman show. It was done by this comedian whose name escapes me, but she was great on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And she starts her show with the name of the one-woman show, "Why Don't You Like Me?"
You idiot.
Yeah, and that seems, vote for me.
Don't forget the "you idiot" part. That's the cherry on the top.
Exactly. And by the way, I didn't mean from that intro, so don't get me wrong on this. I don't want to deny President-elect Donald Trump the credit he deserves for what happened and for this conversion process. But we were probably never going to get Ronald Reagan without going through Jimmy Carter and his fecklessness, and we were probably never going to get Donald Trump without Barack Obama's overreach, particularly in those first 2 years on domestic policy. And I want to get back, Scott, to something that Patrick Ruffini said in that article he wrote that is a really good one. He said the question that naturally would get asked next is whether this is a new equilibrium or a short-term mirage. He says that partisan polarization is one big reason why now might be different. The ancestral Democrat, the guy who votes Democrat because his mom and dad voted Democrat and their mom and dad voted Democrat, the ancestral Democrat who IDs and votes for the party's candidates down ballot while being a de facto Republican federally, those voters, he says, are gradually becoming extinct. If you voted for Trump, you're more likely just to call yourself a Republican. So it's kind of finishing up a process, Scott, that Reagan started in 1980. But if you'll let me paraphrase Ben Franklin, could this be a case of a Republican if you can keep him?
Well,
That's beautiful, man.
First thought I had when you introduced that, and before you got to paraphrasing Benjamin Franklin, was this idea of did the people move toward the Republicans or did the Republicans move toward the people? And with Donald Trump as the kind of the banner waving element of the party at this point, I think it's more of the latter. In essence, years ago, my big complaint about Trump was I thought he was insufficiently Republican. And in many ways, he has shaped the party more in his image than the party has shaped him. And as a result, for a wide variety of reasons, he's been able to attract people to the party that just weren't participating before. Yeah. And so it's in elections, seasoned politicians know that basically the voters don't choose the politicians choose their voters. And so if you're able to turn out the people who are part of your club, so to speak, then you're successful. And so it's really a turnout battle. It's like, can we get young men to show up at the polls? Well, now we can. And so, can we get apathetic black people who feel that both parties been screwing them to show up at the polls? Well, yeah, now we can. And so I think in many ways, yes, this is a Donald Trump phenomenon, but I think it's also something that we're going to get more into in my episode this week when it comes to a real sea change that's happening among people with regard to politics. And I have friends who are stalwart, whatever you want to call them, progressives, inaccurately call them liberals, but they are as ticked off at the Democratic Party as any Republican I've ever heard, and really dissatisfied with that party that pretends to represent them. And then you start seeing these little hints, as Bill was talking about the culture. I'm probably not going to watch any more episodes of it because it's got more of the things I don't like than I want to stomach. But the new Taylor Sheridan TV series, Landman, starring Billy Bob Thornton, there's a little clip that is circulating online right now from that show where this young, liberal woman is, chiding this landman for the fact that they need to replace all this oil consumption with wind farms. And they're out there somewhere in Texas near this wind farm. And Billy Bob Thornton's character just goes on this rant about, do you realize how much diesel fuel it took to make the concrete to pour the foundations for these windmills? Do you realize how much it cost, how much petroleum was used in the construction of the windmills and the transport of them to this site? Do you realize how much lubrication it needs every year to keep running? Do you know that these things won't pay for themselves if they can keep running for 20 years? Do you know who's running these windmills? It's the oil companies. The oil companies are using the windmills to power their drills, their pumps out here away from the grid. And it's just this great rant. Well, and it's going like gangbusters. The TV show's doing well. Obviously, Taylor Sheridan has a track record, but this little clip in particular, people are looking at it and going, yeah, maybe thinking more about how this whole thing works would be better than just mindlessly saying any alternative energy solution is okay. And you didn't hear a lot of that just a couple of years ago. It was more like, hey, if it's windmills, then it's good. And now we've got, a major institution like Hollywood basically saying, really? So I think
that's a great sign. Yeah.
I think you've used Bill used the word ideology. I'm not sure there's really, there's ideology at the level of politicians, but at the level of average Americans, I think it's more emotion, it's more inclination. People aren't as coldly rational. Even those of us who think that we're conservatives and coldly rational about everything, we're not. We are also driven in many ways by things that we identify with. And I think President Trump and some of the others who have been running for office at the same time have been able to connect with that instinct in people that cultivates a basic distrust of institutions that have been lying to you for years and expecting you to produce votes for them all the time. So it's a heartening sign. Will it last? And what is the impact it will have on what it means to be a Republican over time? I think all that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it really does. And I think sealing the deal, keeping those new Republicans, basically depends on Trump delivering on his campaign promises more than anything else, or at least enough of them to make the next 4 years better than the last 4 years. And maybe that's a low bar to clear. If so, I guess we're a little lucky. I got to ask Bill in post to put this photograph up on the screen here. I travel back in time this morning to tell FDR the news that his midwit successors have totally sullied the brand he spent 3+ terms working so hard to define by spending trillions of dollars and only getting one new social welfare program out of it that pretty much everybody hates. And then I snapped this pic and, oh, damn it, I should have made it a selfie. Oh, well, maybe next time. All right, that's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.